I met this Friday morning intern about 6 months ago. I am the principal of a prestigious private university, and every year we run a special program that offers scholarships to students from low-income families. This year's recipient is a young man in his 20s, whom I will call Thomas. He comes from a coastal town but has made tremendous progress in his young years. From his academic performance, it was clear that he would be a model student. He came to my office on that day dressed in his best clothes to start his career, and I greeted him with the courtesy due, but from the moment he walked into my office and introduced himself, announcing that he was this year's scholarship recipient, I felt a warm current run through my entire body, my heart began to beat faster, and at that moment, I realized that I had fallen in love, or as some people say, I fell in love at first sight. To protect my identity, I will not disclose my name, but I am a married woman. I have a son who is 2 years younger than Thomas, and I have been a university principal for nearly 20 years. I studied law and now own a law firm. Being a director has opened many opportunities for me, through which I met my husband. My professional life has always been my greatest pride, and I have devoted myself entirely to my work. I realize that, because of this, I have missed precious moments with my son, and although I feel pain for not being fully committed to the role of a mother, I do not truly regret anything. Some women are naturally meant to be wives and mothers, and they have a sense of mission to care for and nurture their families, but I have never resonated with this. The most important thing in my life has always been my work, the things that fulfill me, the things that make me feel valuable. When I was just a wife and mother, I did not feel powerful, but when I became a principal, a successful lawyer who turned a small company into a well-known brand, I truly felt happy. So, it's not only my relationship with my son that has been affected, but my marital life as well. My husband and I are still together out of habit, to keep up appearances, but we no longer love each other. I want to clarify that I love my son and support him in everything, and I once loved my husband madly, but there are some things that cannot be sustained merely by being with another person, and over time, that love gradually fades and becomes a distant memory. Now, he and I are like two old friends with a shared history and many things in common, and we are content with this. However, Thomas's arrival changed my perspective because I had not felt such an attraction to a man since I dated my husband. It didn't make sense to me, so I logically reasoned that of course I would be attracted to a young man like Thomas. I am a 48-year-old woman who has not forgotten the feeling of being attracted to handsome men, and Thomas is just that. During that interview, I had no idea that our paths would cross, but as the months passed, bit by bit, my view of life changed. As I was signing documents in my office, my secretary informed me that a student wanted to see me. I let him in, and my surprise grew when the young man who had won the scholarship walked in. "Good morning, Principal," the intern bowed and greeted me. He stood in front of the desk. "Good morning," I responded to his greeting and motioned for him to sit down. I didn't remember his name that day, but I quickly recognized his face. The intern looked a bit confused, as if he didn't know how to start the conversation. "What can I do for you?" I asked in a friendly tone. His awkward posture struck me as strange because I didn't remember him being like that. "I can't accept the scholarship anymore," he said urgently, looking at me intently. I was surprised by his words. "Well," I asked, "what is the reason for your decision?" He was silent for a few seconds, staring at the ground. When he spoke, his posture told me that he was not satisfied with his decision. "I have personal issues," he replied, not saying any more. I was thinking about what to say next because I would usually go to the scholarship committee to inform them of the situation, but my intuition told me to forget the etiquette. "Every year, we award scholarships to young people like you," I said. "In all the years I have been the principal, we have never awarded a scholarship to such an excellent student like you. For us, students like you are an honor, which is why we are very generous with the benefits included in the scholarship. I remember you were looking forward to starting your career, if I remember correctly, as a lawyer, right?" He vaguely answered, "Yes." "So what happened? If there is anything we can help with, please let us know," I broke the formal tone. The intern shrugged his shoulders, frowning, and I felt that there was more to it. "I am very grateful for everything you have done for me," he said without hesitation, "but I do not come from a wealthy family like others. My father is sick, he is the only support of our family, and when I am studying, I have no way to help him." At that moment, my mind quickly sought a solution, and it came to me soon after. I offered him a part-time job opportunity at my company. I believed I did it for the right reasons, giving a young person with a promising future a chance to achieve his dreams, to enter his dream university without any issues, and to get a part-time job to help his loved ones. He immediately agreed, and within a few days, I arranged to reduce his course load so he could work part-time at my company. Additionally, since the university campus was far from my personal office, I offered him an opportunity to work with me at the university. Thomas, whom I did not remember the name of at our second meeting, was the kind of person who would not miss an opportunity and adapted to the job completely within a week. He always arrived 20 minutes early and left, and he had classes in the afternoon. In his rare moments of free time, I found him studying in the library. When we had to go to the office to solve problems, he used these trips to continue studying. Over the next few weeks, my relationship with Thomas evolved from formal to friendly. He was very diligent, so I never needed to get his attention or remind him of anything. On the contrary, Thomas not only did his job well but also came up with new ideas and was always interested in things. He seemed satisfied with what he was doing, and I was happy to help him. Until one day, I realized that my love for him was not a mother's love, not an inevitable appreciation from a teacher to a student, but something deeper, which scared me. Thomas could be my son, I told myself once. But another part of me argued back, saying he was not, and I should not see him that way. But I knew it was wrong of me to see him with different eyes, because he was still young and I was not, because there would always be an unbridgeable gap between us, and I would not be the one to bridge it. Unfortunately, for my conscience, fate had other plans. Thomas remained a bystander in a case at my company. I and 3 top lawyers prepared a foolproof defense. Thomas asked to participate, and after a long hesitation, we finally won. As is customary, we went to the office to celebrate. My team ordered food from a restaurant, and drinks began to appear everywhere. This effort took us several weeks, and everything seemed to be against our client, but we got the job done, and happiness was evident on everyone, including Thomas, who seemed very excited about what had happened. When we left the court, I invited him to join us, and he congratulated us enthusiastically. "Celebrate with us, Thomas," I invited him with a smile. "Yes, Thomas, join us so you can see how lawyers celebrate," said one of the lawyers on my team. A few hours later, we celebrated, and as everyone said goodbye to us, the office gradually emptied until only Thomas and I were left at the front desk. During the celebration, I slipped into the office to tell my husband that we had won the trial and that I would come back later, but received no response. I sat with a bottle of wine in my hand, feeling somewhat inexplicably sad. Just at those moments, there was a knock on the door, and Thomas came in, his cheeks flushed, his eyes blurry. I could tell he had had a few beers, but it seemed like it was the first time he had drunk so much. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes, and you?" I replied. I took a big gulp from the bottle, noticing Thomas looking at me curiously. "I've never seen you like this," he said. "Am I drunk?" I replied with a smile. "So relaxed," Thomas replied. He walked over and sat down on the sofa, looking around the office in complete silence. "What did you think of the trial? Did you take notes?" I asked. I stood up from my chair and walked over to a chair in front of the sofa. At such a close distance, I could smell Thomas's perfume. "It was amazing," he replied emotionally. "Are you always so ruthless?" I asked him with a smile. "Yes, I have a somewhat tough reputation in court," I replied with a smile. "You are very charming," he said, but seemed to regret it. "I'm sorry, it's not appropriate for me to say that. It's just that you're a bit intimidating, you're too beautiful." I interrupted him. "Thomas, do I scare you?" Thomas stared at me silently, but his expression was like that of a frightened puppy. "To be honest, a bit," he replied softly. "Why?" I asked. "Because I was rude to the jury, or because I'm attractive?" He immediately replied, "Both." We were silent for a few seconds, just looking at each other, but I could read his eyes were screaming. When his gaze crossed the line, I couldn't take it anymore. We let what had been brewing slowly, carefully, thoroughly cook. In his arms, I realized that something so simple could change everything. Although Thomas was inexperienced, life would make him a competent person in all areas, and at that moment, when I discovered my deepest feelings for him, I felt everything was fine. As long as I was with him, nothing else mattered. Have you done this before? I asked, my lungs needing air. He looked good like this, eyes filled with love, face relaxed. No, this is the first time, he gently replied, confirming my suspicion. Really? I asked skeptically. How is that possible? I haven't had time to fall in love, he replied. After a while, but his voice was firm, he seemed convinced of what he was saying. I'm not going to ask, because we will have time to get to know each other better. You don't need a girl for this, Thomas, I whispered, I will show you what love can do. He said nothing, just leaned back on the sofa, and as the feeling washed over his body, he whispered, that's truly incredible. A satisfied smile spread across his face. Do you know what else is incredible? I whispered, hinting that what was to come would be even better. The thing we started would have an ending, but it would be a good ending, an incredible ending, and like a hunting snake, I decided that my feelings for this humble intern were more than just an attraction. There are some things they don't teach you at university, I whispered, like this, something you won't see in any diploma program. Thomas learned quickly, and what started as inexperience and clumsy dancing was replaced by more confident dancing, something I will never forget. I didn't want either of us to be aware of the taboo nature of our encounter, so I released the shackles that had bound me all my life. My body was released from the guilt of the moment, and I dedicated myself to love. It didn't matter that you were an intern with an uncertain future, nor that I was a married woman. Alcohol freed our minds from all the shackles that held us back in life, and we did this indefinitely. The next morning, I woke up alone, feeling regret, which made me miss work for the first time in years. At home, I pondered how much I had missed, how much I wanted to feel alive again like I did last night in Thomas's company. Lying in bed, I wondered when was the last time I felt this way, so vibrant, so fresh, so full of energy. The answer in my mind was a moment later, because I don't remember when it was last, because it seemed to block everything, because when my life was based on work, emotions had no place, they were not a priority. My husband became a stranger, someone who wanted the same as me, to let time decide our future, because neither of us dared to end our relationship, despite the obvious fact that we were no longer a couple. The day after meeting Thomas, he walked into my office, red-faced, and told me that he wanted to continue what we left off in the morning, and I agreed without hesitation, because at that moment, I couldn't say no to this handsome intern, who came into my life, ready to show me that a woman like me still has a second chance to love without limits. Although it's sometimes hard to look my husband in the eye, deep down, what my intern and I did made up for it. It's been a long time since I felt liberated, and nothing else matters to me anymore. To this day, my husband knows nothing, and I hope, for my son's sake, that it stays this way. What would you do if you were in my situation? Would you let yourself be carried away by your feelings? Despite your age, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. Thank you, see you next time.